Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along, staff, students, and members of the public alike. Obviously, we're really excited to welcome you to our beautiful campus here in Old Aberdeen. Obviously, this is the second most important thing that's going to happen this week, behind Scotland thrashing Germany. But yeah, welcome along to our candidate debate. Before we get started and tell you how tonight's going to work, let's start with some housekeeping. So we're not expecting a fire drill tonight, so if you do hear the fire alarm sound, please leave your belongings and leave the building in an orderly fashion. The muster point is on the grass outside the building. Finn here will be on hand to help in the unlikely event that anything happens, and we have some student union staff as well who I will introduce in a moment. Toilets, if you need to go, are situated back out this door, ladies downstairs and men's upstairs. If you need to use an accessible toilet, that is accessed on the other side of the building on the first floor. If you need assistance to find that, let us know and one of us will show you where to go. If you need any other support throughout the night, please feel free to talk to anyone from the Gaudie editorial team, which you can find with these teal lanyards. So that includes myself. So I'm Kirsten. We have Josh, who's going to chair the event. Our editors-in-chief are here. We have Kaylee on this side. Clive, who is here, who is also a resident photographer for the day. Our features editor, Finn, is here. And then from the Students' Union, we have Graeme. We have some of our student officers, and we have Kenneth, who I think is still out there. So if you need any help throughout the night, please do give us a shout. Again, Clive will be taking photos throughout the night, so if you're uncomfortable with that, I guess now is the time to leave the room. This also will be live streamed and recorded, so please don't say anything that you wouldn't like people to watch back. So we have gathered a range of candidates from across the political spectrum, and we opened up an online forum for you to submit your questions ahead for the panel. And we also have QR codes available on the table, which someone will show you now. So if you feel that our folks, our lovely panel here, haven't answered your question, or you would like to ask them something a wee bit different from the topics that we've covered, then please submit through there. I'll be monitoring that through the night, and I'll be able to pass those on to Josh to ask our candidates. So let me introduce you first of all to our panel and our chair. Like I said, this is Josh, our award-winning chair. And from the candidates, we have Charlie, who's from the ALBA party. We have Kirsty from the SNP. We have Graeme from the Scottish Family Party. Guy from the Scottish Greens. From Labour, we have Lynn. From the Conservatives, we have Richard. And to round off our panel, we have our independent candidate, Sophie. So, without further ado, you'll be glad to hear it. That's the last you have to hear from me. I'll now pass it over.
Okay, everyone. Well, thank you again for coming, and I'll just explain a little bit about how the rules are going to go. So every candidate, obviously there are quite a few of you, and we want to make sure that the conversation goes well and is structured smoothly. So just in case of that, for your opening statement, you have 30 seconds each. Just introduce yourself and kind of say a wee bit about why you're here. And then throughout every question, we'll have essentially questions from the audience and also questions that have been sort of submitted. I'll ask the question and I'll say, if you would like to answer this, please put your hand in the air. And then, of course, anyone who wants to respond, put their hands in the air, and we'll pass the mic to one of them. And then they can, after speaking for around 45 seconds, we don't want people to go on forever and ever. They can then pass to the next person. Do your best to keep yourselves brief. There are a lot of you, but sometimes people like to ramble. So we'll see how it goes. But again, that's how it's basically going to work. When the last person's spoken, I'll take the mic back, and then I'll ask the next question. Like Kirsten did say, people in the audience, if you want to ask questions, you can just scan the QR code and put it right in, and then person will then send them to me. We're not going to have any live participation from the audience just because of only having one microphone. It's a bit tricky, and we want to make the best of what we have. So hopefully that works for everyone. Please scan the QR code and then send the questions to Kirsten. But let's get started, I think. So first on the list for our candidate introduction, why don't you just start on this end with Richard, and we'll work our way down to Charlie, and then I'll come on that side and grab the mic from you. So we'll start with Richard, if you don't mind. Just here you go.
Thank you. My name is Richard Brooks. I am the Conservative City Leader in Aberdeen City Council. I'm also a candidate at Arbroath and Broughty Ferry for the Conservative Party. And I grew up in the northeast. I actually grew up in Arbroath, which is why I'm standing down there. But I think I'm unashamedly concerned about Scotland. And although this is a UK election, my focus and the focus of the people that I've spoken to has been about Scotland. And so door to door, what I've been hearing and what I'm standing for is that the people I speak to want investment, not independence. And the majority of folk that I've spoken to, even those that are undecided, are saying very similar things. And so if you vote for myself and the Conservatives, you'll get exactly what it says on the tin: investment, not independence. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie and I'm standing as an independent in Aberdeen South. I am standing because I want to help the disenfranchised, the vulnerable minorities in our community and those who are often left behind. I believe in fairness, inclusion and equality for all, and that's my deepest beliefs. And I believe that a vote for me would reflect that, would say to the vulnerable out there in society that they are not forgotten about, they have a voice, and I want to provide that voice.
Well, hello everyone, I'm Lynn Thomson, Scottish Labour candidate for Aberdeen North. Like Richard, I've knocked on quite a few hundred doors in the past few months, and people are hungry for change. Across the constituency, they're tired of 14 years of this chaotic Conservative government and 17 years of the SNP at Holyrood. So if you want change, make sure you're registered to vote, make sure you go out to vote for change and vote for Scottish Labour. Thank you.
I'm going to stand up as well. I'm Kirsty. I'm Kirsty Blackman. I was elected first as the MP for Aberdeen North in 2015. Throughout the time that I've been the MP for Aberdeen North, I've made 1,860 contributions in Parliament, which is more than one every sitting day on average. My team and I have helped people with over 30,000 problems. That's 70 new issues a week nearly. We've helped people with any issue that they come through the door with. I've been very much focused on trying to do everything that I can for the people that live in the constituency and assisting them with every issue. My priority now is tackling the cost of living. It's the thing that we're hearing about the most. It is the biggest concern for people, and in all of my time doing this, I have never seen things in a worse state. So everything that we are focusing on is about trying to improve the cost of living, ensure that people have got enough to live on, which is not a sentence I should have to say in 2024.
I won't be standing up, I've got bad knees. Let's see. A vote for the Scottish Greens is a vote for a more secure, sustainable world. That's what we need. We need security, not just when it comes to issues of war and peace, such as the situation in Palestine, but also when it comes to the security and sustainability of the jobs that we have here in the Northeast. A vote for the Greens is about sending a strong message to Westminster that enough is enough. We deserve better. We shouldn't be spending billions on arms exports to dictators and brutal regimes. We instead should be investing that money into our communities and into our people and making sure that we have a more sustainable planet and future for future generations. So vote Scottish Greens. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Graeme Craib. I am new to all this, so please be kind on me tonight. I am an electrical engineer, used to be an electrician. I've got a bachelor's in electrical and electronic engineering, and I have a master's in energy as well. I'm a chartered engineer registered with the Engineering Council, and I've worked in the oil and gas industry for about 20 years, so hopefully I'll be able to provide some insights there. I'm standing as a candidate for the Scottish Family Party in Aberdeen South, so hopefully we'll have a good, interesting discussion tonight, and thank you very much.
Evening folks, I'm Charlie Abel. I'm standing for the ALBA party in Aberdeen North. I've been an independent supporter most of my life, and I believe that most of the problems you'll be hearing discussed tonight can be solved with Scottish independence. I was 17 years in the SNP. I felt it completely lost our way with independence. I joined ALBA on day one. And in this election, I am the only candidate that's putting independence on the ballot paper. And you can trust ALBA with your independence vote. You can trust ALBA with North East energy jobs. You can trust ALBA with people's rights, including the rights of women and girls. And you can trust ALBA
That's bullshit.
to deliver
That's
independence. Excuse me?
That's our bullshit.
Can you explain that, please?
No, no. Because you don't care about trans women.
We protect it.
You're a trans women party.
Have a look at our website. It's written
You're
on our
absolutely a
website.
trans women party. We're not standing for that. I'll not stand for that.
Appreciate that. If you have questions, probably the others, please put them forward, and we'll do it that way rather than having threats. If you don't mind, thank you. Just so everyone can kind of continue with the stuff front. But I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone who's here. We have our first question, which is about oil and gas. It's about the energy transition. It was submitted by George, a student here at the university. Unfortunately, we don't have the capability to have people reading out just from the floor, just because of the lack of microphones. So I'll read it out for him. Just as a quick word for timekeeping, if you look in the back there, Finn will be our timekeeper. So when he puts his hand in the air, that'll symbolize there are 10 seconds left in your response. And we'll try to stick to about 45 seconds per response, just again to keep things moving. So make sure you're looking at Finn to put his hand in the air when it's time to move on, if that's all right. First question, I'll read that out from George. As soon as my phone opens up, there we go. What will your party do to support and accelerate a just transition away from oil and gas? So that's the question. What will your party do to accelerate a just transition away from oil and gas? If you'd like to answer that, put your hand in the air, and I will then pass it to someone, and we'll get started. So if you want to answer that question, hand in the air, please, just so I can see. I think everyone wants to do it. Good, that's fine. I just want to know, sometimes people don't want to say, but anyway. We'll start in the middle with Kirsty. We'll go Kirsty down to Charlie, and then I'll take it back, start with Richard, and go to Lynn, if that's okay.
Thanks very much. So a number of things that we're already doing, but just the key words in it is that it's got to be just and it's got to be a transition. So both of those things have to happen. It has to be as fair as possible for as many people as possible. Growing up in Aberdeen, there is significant inequality in this city, and I want to use the transition to ensure that that inequality is reduced, to ensure that we're not seeing people with oil and gas salaries inflating things like rents and prices in shops and things. So that's really important for me. I think that the Westminster parties are currently failing to grasp the opportunities that there are with transition. We can be the best place in Europe for renewables, and we need to take advantage of that.
Well, I don't know, but I think I'm one of the few candidates in this election across the city that's actually a former oil and gas worker. So I have made that transition myself, and I understand how difficult it is. I had to go back into education as an adult. That's a scary thing when you hit your 30s, let alone if you're in your 50s and you've worked on rigs all your life. So I understand some of the fears around that. But the reality is this is an industry already in decline. Those jobs are going faster and faster every day. Even with new oil and gas licenses that the UK government have irresponsibly issued, you're looking at a situation where the jobs are going to continue to decline. What we need to be seeing is an end to tax subsidies, an end to subsidies on aviation fuel, and we need to see that money instead reinvested in the communities that need it to ensure that that transition is green and fair.
Well, as somebody that's worked in the industry myself for a number of years and also lived in Aberdeen all my life, I recognise the benefits that energy has brought to Aberdeen in the North East. So in short, oil and gas is vital for Aberdeen in the North East. It's a vital industry. There's a lot of people in jobs there, and also we provide fuel, energy to people's homes and that kind of thing. So when we speak about just transition, obviously that takes into account that there's obviously emissions issues caused by burning fossil fuels, and I think everybody recognises that. We don't want to unnecessarily pollute the world. But at the same time, we've got to be careful, because we can't just cut up the taps and expect to go on as normal. And I guess that's why they call it transition. But what we need to be sure is that we set realistic targets that are real, achievable, and actually work for the benefit of us all. Thank you.
Well, we need jobs and investment here to get to the just transition. So we need to use our own oil rather than use oil that's imported from the other side of the world. But to get that oil, we should do it with a public share for the Scottish people in each new licence that's granted. And we should make it a condition that carbon capture has to be used to reduce the impact on the environment. But it's absolute nonsense to think that we shut down our own oil fields, take the stuff in from more polluting areas on the other side of the world, and think that we've greened it because we moved it to the other balance sheet in some of the other third world country. Better to use our domestic energy, keep our domestic jobs going, and use that. We need that jobs here for when we have this transition to the new technology. It's common sense.
Thank you. Well, the Conservatives are committed to net zero. We're committed to a just energy transition. One of the challenges that I see is ignorance, to be honest, when there's a conversation about this. And that would be around the carbon capture and storage and the investment into new technologies, the investment into new energies. Guess where that money comes from? It comes from some of the oil giants that we are protesting against when we talk about green energy. Now, the just transition is only just if you look at the whole picture. And the whole picture is quite simply this, that the money that we're spending on developing wind turbines and the recyclable blades, that money is coming from the oil and gas sector. The majority of funding for new energies is coming from oil and gas. And as Aberdeen City Council, when the Conservatives were leading administration last time around, you'll see that BP put in £3 million in a joint venture with the council for hydrogen. So we're seeing the development and the investment coming from existing oil and gas companies. And because of that, we're seeing the just transition accelerated. And I agree with Charlie. We actually need to use the skills here and allow oil and gas from this country to be used, not imported at a cost to the environment from other countries. Thank you.
Well, firstly, it must be just, because we do not want to end up in a situation we had in the 80s, where massive amounts of people were suddenly made unemployed. That is just unthinkable torment for those families and those people that were thrust out of work. So I believe that it is possible, but it has to be done through discussion with unions involved, because unions are key. They're the bridge. They're the bridge that we need to make this just transition work. I want to see this just transition because we don't have much time left. It's a climate emergency. We have until around 2050 before this emergency becomes critical. And I want to see a just transition where people are absolutely excited to get towards renewable energy, such as solar power and wind farms, etc. But it has to be done right. We cannot have a repeat of the 80s, what happened under Thatcher, because that's just awful.
Right, oil and gas transition. Thanks for the question, George. We have to accelerate it. We absolutely do. There is a climate emergency. That is a matter of fact, and only the most blinkered would fail to see that. In this transition, the most important resource isn't oil, it's not gas, it's people, the human resources who work in the energy industry. We have to ensure that transition is fair and just for them. Labour is looking to have a windfall tax, to extend it and raise it from 75 to 78p. And using that money, we can, for example, improve the national grid so that renewables will work properly. At the moment, we have run out of capacity in the grid in Aberdeen for battery farms, which are an essential part of the renewables process.
Right, if anyone else wants get in, that's fine. So I called Charlie's name first, and I saw Guy, and I saw Kirsty, so.
The plans that Labour have for the windfall tax, taking it 75 to 78%. There's the Stifle report that's out, I don't know if you've read it, but it predicts of the 200,000 existing North East oil and gas jobs, would lose 100,000 of them.
Guy, Kirsty, and Lynn was second.
Lynn is actually right if you heard her. It's not true. That report has been found to be false. But just to touch on a couple of things that are, no, Charlie, give me a minute, I'll let you speak. Just a couple of things I need to rebut there. Carbon capture and storage, for example. The biggest carbon capture and storage project is the Gorgon project in Western Australia. It has been proven not to work, right? The decades that it's going to take to make that technology work are decades that we're going to waste time and money on in trying to resolve the climate crisis when we already have most of the technologies we need. When we're talking about how much the oil and gas industry is putting into renewables, they're putting 20 times that amount into share buybacks to milk more and more money off of you and your energy bills. They're investing more money in PR than they are in renewables as well. It's absurd to say that you can have the arsonist put out the fire when they're the ones setting the world on fire in the first place. We should immediately the government should be immediately trying to rein these companies in. They have been milking us dry for years, burning up our planet. And Sophie's point about the critical point is in 2050. The critical point is now. In Pakistan, thousands died from floods that were induced by climate change. Thousands of people are dying every day. Almost 120,000 people died in and around the Horn of Africa from drought. This is already an emergency. And to hear some of the people on this stage saying, oh, well, the oil and gas are investing in it, so, just leave them be. We need to be doing that. No, people are dying right now. Jobs matter, yes, but people's lives matter just as much, and if not more. And I think we need to bear that in mind.
All right, so. First Lynn, then Graeme, Richard, and then Charlie wanted to get back in, and then.
Yeah, it was quite a read.
All right. Well, let's get through these folk. We'll get to our next question. So Kirsty, Lynn, Graeme, Richard.
I mean, it is a climate emergency. We need to do everything that we can. We need to also take advantage of the opportunities that there are for Aberdeen. I mean, Aberdeen's been so reliant on oil and gas for so long to the exclusion of so many other things. We've got a huge amount of work to do in diversifying our economy locally, not just in renewables, but in loads of different ways. The stuff that the university does around research and things is phenomenal. And we don't shout about it nearly enough. So we need to continue to support that. I mean, the key thing for me here is Aberdeen. The key thing for me is jobs and the people who live in Aberdeen. We need to do everything that we can to support them. And just on the Labour's additional windfall tax, if they're going to levy an additional windfall tax, then spending it on nuclear power in England is not the right thing to do.
Right, just to come back to the point about the Stifle report. The Stifle Investment Bank is a North American bank, and it has close ties with oil and gas giants. The 100,000 job losses, whilst very worrying, are estimated to be across the UK and are not just oil and gas jobs. Those are jobs that are tertiary to the oil industry, so maybe hospitality, etc. It's not just purely energy jobs. So don't let anybody tell you that those are purely oil and gas jobs, because they are not.
That's okay then.
It is not okay, but I think it's important to challenge any misinformation. There has been enough in our politics recently. We should have proper conversations, discussions, and policies that are based upon evidence, not spurious claims and things that are done for sound bites. We need to have a proper, grown-up discussion about important matters, because they may be nuances that we need to consider as well.
Just want to come back on Guy's point. I just want to point out that since we set the benchmark, emissions in the UK under the UK government currently has reduced by 50%. And what I'd also like to say is that the emissions, carbon dioxide or CO2 equivalent emissions account for 1% globally in the UK, 1%. And so when we hear Guy talking about we've got to do this now, we've got to That's absolute nonsense. Because we're in a country, we're in a UK that has just 1% emissions. If you want to cause a problem, stand in China, stand in India, where they're developing coal and furnace burning fuel that goes out to carbon.
If I lived in India or China, that's what I would do, but I don't, I live here.
And you live here and you're saying that we have a crisis, and so the 1%, you know, we could sink underwater. Economists have actually said this, we could sink underwater, the whole of the UK, it would make that much difference to emissions in the global context. That doesn't mean to say we don't do it, because we have done it, 50% reduction since the benchmark was made. But it's absolutely rich to hear someone say, we need to do this in this country now. I'm sorry, there's a lot more important things, and a just transition takes into consideration people, not just some wild idea that, like, just oil, you know, or stop oil. You know, why? Why are they doing that here? I mean, get over to India and China where the real problem is. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some organization because that for resources of the international countries. You cause that your Conservative Party.
I'm sorry, you're incorrect.
The problem.
I'm sorry, you're incorrect. I'm sorry, you're totally incorrect.
Incorrect.
You are incorrect. Please stop talking. You're incorrect. Please stop talking. Be rude. Please.
How does militarising the South China Sea help? Warmongers.
To that later.
To be perfectly honest,
Guys, please calm down. Please be respectful. Remember, we're all people here, please.
yes, have some respect.
All right, both of you, please, thank you, thank you.
Respect.
Let's-
Stop talking, please.
All right,
How about you have respect for the whole planet?
Right,
All the
let's-
human
let's-
beings on the whole planet, right? You said part of one planet.
Which
So
means
if you want to talk about respect, the way that you were talking about.
right.
It's respectful. It's using the
So,
whole.
all right, can I just say something for those in the audience? I appreciate your concern. However, for accessibility, since we are doing this on Teams and there are people there who might not be able to hear,
Apologies.
we would like to please have your questions go through the Microsoft forum, as we have put out. Just because if we do it this way, it will just be inaccessible for folks who are listening online. So I understand some people have different things, but we just look at that.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? I think if someone on the platform, I mean, I would appreciate it, obviously, you guys as the candidates could have that to pick him up on some of those points that he's making, because I feel I'm quite disgusted that he could sort of just stand there and say that, but I understand there's
Right.
one line.
Thank you. Let's keep, so we have still get Graeme to get to, and then we have our next question, which is another oil and gas one, and then we'll move on to Graeme to continue, and then we'll keep the evening going.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say something and to continue the conversation, but before I do, I just want to remind everybody, this is obviously a discussion topic. We're all going to have different opinions, and that's okay. But we shouldn't be shouting at each other or losing tempers and things like that. We're trying to have, an intellectual discussion here, and hopefully we can all learn something and enjoy ourselves. So I just wanted to say that anyway. But yeah, so now I've got that out of the way, I'm actually going to agree with Richard. Sorry, that's what I said. But yes, what I think Richard was saying about the global context is right. And that was what I planned to say along that kind of lines as well. So the biggest polluters in the world is China, India, and I think America as well. In respect of the global emissions that's produced, the UK is very, very small. So we could almost cut off all our oil and gas and burn nothing, and it would not make a difference at all. So you have to look at things in a wider context. So as I said earlier, we agree we don't want to all destroy the planet. We've all got to live here. We've all got to share it. But we need to think about the common sense approach that Charlie had also said. Oil and gas doesn't just provide fuel and energy, it provides lubricants, pharmaceuticals, clothing, textiles, and a lot of benefits that we get from it. So we'll have to think about all these things as well. And respect our jobs, particularly in the Northeast, I remember the downturn not too long ago. And, the impact of that is something that we don't want to repeat. A lot of people were out of work for a long time, and that had devastating effects on people's families. Some people maybe lost their homes. People obviously had mental health issues, things like that, divorces, and terrible consequences when you're out of work. And it was very, very difficult to find work afterwards. Obviously, COVID's come along not long after that, and the city and the industry is struggled to recover. So I think some of the comments made about how oil and gas companies are doing this and finance this and finance that, they've actually had a bad time, and I've experienced that firsthand. And some companies don't make as much money as you think. There's a lot of old platforms out there and mature reservoirs, which as I think was Richard also said, are naturally declining. So in the northeast, we don't need to do that much. And in fact, companies need to invest more, because then that puts money into technologies that make the oil and gas production, exploration and drilling a lot cleaner. So we've got to think about these things as well. It's not just a case of turning off the taps.
Thank you, everyone. We'll have one more question related to energy transition. I will say, and that took about 20 minutes. Everyone has lots to say. I'm just going to be a bit more cut for time, if that's all right. So if you do see the hand up, please stop. And if you can't, I'll have to say something, just because we have lots of issues to get to, and we don't want people here into the wee hours of the morning, which I might enjoy as a chair. But the rest of the other things to do. So if you don't mind, like I said, Finn is going to put his hand up at 10 seconds. If you see that, you can wrap yourself up. If you keep talking beyond that, I'll just have to say, look, can you please come to a halt? Just so we have a nice flow of things. I'd appreciate that. Okay, our next question on the oil and gas transition is actually from one of our student officers here at the university. And essentially, it's talking about kind of how we can parlay some of this action into potentially improving transport bills for students, which I think is a very topical issue. In full, it's how will you support action on climate change to ensure sustainable energy and transport security to reduce energy and transport bills that students pay. I'll say that one more time. How will you support action on climate change to ensure sustainable energy and transport security to reduce the energy and transport bills that students pay here in Aberdeen? We started with Kirsty last time. We'll start this end with Charlie, and we'll just work our way all the way down. And I will say, please keep the time limit, and then we'll go on to our next topic after that.
Well, the best way to deal with that is to get some more oil and gas out of the sea to reduce your bills, to use our energy to work for the Scottish people rather than work for foreign energy companies. And I would like to see a free public transport system for everyone, not just a certain part of society, across the board, a publicly funded, free, fair transport system. That's one of our policies. And ending fuel poverty is one. And the only way you can end fuel poverty realistically is by having an independent Scotland taking back control of your resources so that they give the power to the people and not to the foreign entities.
Yes, so I would tend to agree with Charlie in a lot of respects. I think, as I said earlier, investment in oil and gas gives us cheap energy. One of the reasons our electricity bills have gone up is because a chunk of that is going towards renewable energies. Renewable energies are far less energy dense than oil and gas, so that's why it tends to cost a lot more, because it takes more effort, I suppose, or more energy to actually work for its purpose. So the other thing I would also say is another area where we've all felt hit is the price of fuel. So obviously the price of fuel is still quite high, and I think we'd all agree we'd like to see it come down. But I think one aspect the government could have looked at was perhaps to reduce fuel duty, because obviously if the fuel price is up, the percentage stays the same, but obviously tax revenue increases and it could decrease.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to rebut some of the misinformation I've heard at some point. But anyway, when it comes to transport, the Scottish Greens in government made sure it was free bus travel for under 22s. We would like to have free public transport across the board. That's one of the things we'd like to do. If we're looking at the North East, the campaign for North East Rail, it's something we massively support. People in Fraserburgh and Peterhead should have a rail connection. It's ridiculous that they don't. So we would also like to, if you ever have a chance to read the Rail for All report for the Scottish Greens, is to expand the rail network across Scotland. That would require 5 billion every 5 years over the next 20, if memory serves, to reverse some of the beaching. So that's what we would like to do in transport, but in other areas, reducing energy bills. Oil and gas actually is increasing our energy bills because our energy bills are tied to it. So the sooner we get off of it, the sooner we can reduce bills.
I think in terms of transport, I mean, the SNP government also introduced the under-22s for bus pass. I've had conversations with the bus companies recently in Aberdeen about the possibility of extending that, so extending the age upwards, particularly when you hit 22 and don't have your free bus pass anymore. Hoping to try and make sure that that happens for longer. The bus gates are tied up in that. The people who have, the bus companies have saved money as a result of the bus gates, and we have been trying to push them to make sure that they invest as much of that back in Aberdeen and getting cheaper fares and stuff, particularly on other energy stuff. The stuff around hydrogen for buses and electricity for buses is really good, and also trying to ensure that we've got as cheap energy as possible in our houses, but we need to reform the energy market. I took 45 seconds last sentence.
Right. Well, I'm old enough to remember when gas was, they said they couldn't give it away because it was so cheap. Now that seems like a long, long time ago. Fossil fuels, they're volatile, they're traded on international markets, their prices go up, their prices seem to come down as much. So we need to look at renewables for our energy security. And investing in public transport, absolutely. I would love to see public transport in public hands. So council run bus service, like Lothian buses. Aberdeen Labour has been pushing for that for some time, but the law hasn't allowed us to do so. But hopefully that's something that we could do in the future. In addition, I'd like to see trains that could run on hydrogen. Again, Aberdeen is a world leader in producing green hydrogen from renewable sources. So I'd like to see that as well. Thank you.
Well, you took my point right out of my mouth. No, thank you. I agree that we need a council-run service like LRT in Edinburgh and the Lothians. It's very successful in creating cheap and frequent and reliable bus travel. And this is because it's ran not purely for profit. When things are not ran purely for profit, they become like the service doesn't have to, it can reach areas without having to always be full. When a service is run for profit, the buses always have to be full, and this means that there's less of them and there's less routes for the buses to go on. So yeah, I agree with your point, and electric hydrogen buses are fantastic.
When you see we're low on any commodity, the price of that commodity goes up. And so in answering direct that question, I think energy security, and ensuring energy security in a green manner, okay? I'm not suggesting that it's not green, whether that be wind turbines that we use, wave energy, hydrogen, electric, or oil and gas. If you have a commodity that is plentiful, it will reduce the price of that commodity. So energy security means that we have our own energy. We're not at risk of having to import it at higher prices. Thank you.
Okay, so right, we have. I'm going to let everyone one shot to get back in. Just when I say something, same time frame applies. So just to be mindful. And once that's over, we'll go to our next topic, which is on immigration. But if you want to get back and put your hand up, I see Kirsty, Guy, Sophie. Okay, so I see a good number of folks. We're Sophie on this side, work our way down to the end.
I really think that my biggest concern for the just transition to renewables and how we could actually improve things is by having less privatization. Privatization is, in my mind, is evil. I'm going to say it right now, but since the 1980s, since we moved from a system of it being state-run, it's just been one disaster after the other. And if energy was brought back under state control, what would mean is we'd have more regulation over it. We'd be able to control it easier. Instead, you're getting You're getting customers getting ripped off left, right, and centre.
In terms of energy production, we produce enough from renewable energy sources to power the whole of Scotland. So it's not like we're lacking in the amount of energy that we have. It's just that we're making the wrong choices and the market is structured in the wrong way. So as the prices are decided on the basis of coal, basically, and how the coal system used to work, which is why people in Aberdeen pay more for standing charges than they do down south, which is why it costs more to connect the grid in Aberdeenshire than it does in Wales or in England, which is just bizarre. We should be prioritising bikes and access to walking transport. We should be prioritising buses. The City Council are doing what they can currently in making a dent in that. We're not there yet, but we need to do more. And the buses that we do have need to be significantly cheaper so people can actually afford them.
There's been some, I think Charlie touched on it and Richard as well about, foreign sources of oil and gas and energy. It's foreign companies that run the North Sea at the moment. It's foreign companies that take that money away and then charge you double, triple the price for your energy. It's foreign companies that have caused a lot of this problem. We don't have a state-owned oil and gas company or even a state-owned energy company. And that's something we should have. Norway had two, one for renewables. I can't remember its name, but it looked at hydroelectricity, and another one for oil and gas. We should be looking at doing the same at a national level as well as a local level so that you get the benefit of your energy.
Yeah, so I'm going to emulate a couple of things that were said. So again, coming back to the price concern, and yeah, oil and gas is volatile. The price goes up, the price goes down. We all know that. But another thing that's true, so generally oil and gas operators, they look at the cost per barrel. So in a simple sense, the more oil or gas that you're producing, the lower the cost per barrel is. So again, that also helps to keep prices low. Now, the other point is that they're not all foreign companies that's operating in the North Sea, but yeah, some of them are, but that is obviously international business. But however, that's not really the point. The point comes back to realising we still need oil and gas for some time to come, and that's a hard reality, but also it's a lot cheaper to have it locally rather than to import it.
And Scotland's not getting the benefit of the renewable energy that we've invested in so far, and we're paying more for our electric. Westminster could end it overnight by detaching the way we charge for domestic energy. Why charge a wind farm giving you electricity the same as you would tie it into the international price of electricity generated from gas? That is insane. That's what your government in Westminster is doing to you now. And they're building pylons, if you haven't noticed, all across Scotland, connecting those wind farms and undersea cables that are piping all our electricity down through the North Sea into places in England so they can sell them on to Europe. So they're absolutely stealing our energy, and we're sitting here unaware of what's happening. Please waken up, people.
Okay, well, thank you for that lively first section there. We're going to move on to immigration, which I'm sure will also be a lively topic. It's kind of two questions for each section. So the first question here focuses on international students. What's a question from another member of our student union? What does the future look like for international students who decide to study in Scotland? I'll say that one more time. What's the future look like for international students who decide to study in Scotland? We'll start with Guy in the middle. And if Guy, if you can pass down to Richard, I'll get it from Richard and bring it back to Charlie.
Well, the future is not looking very bright at the moment. The university sector has been, I'll be honest, has been bleeding international students dry, charging huge fees to support the university sector. So it's not looking very bright. Because of the UK immigration policies as well, it's restricting who can come here even more day by day. Not just international students, but we're looking at people like in social care, for example, where we have a bit of a crisis, to say the least. The NHS, various other sectors as well. But it's not just about the economic side of immigration, and the education sector is an example of that, but it's also about the loss of connections in people that we could have made. And I would like to see that reversed. I think we should be lifting some of the restrictions on immigration that the Conservatives have brought in.
Thank you.
I mostly agree with Guy on that in terms of immigration is a good thing. It is a good thing. Aberdeen has more non-UK born people by percentage than anywhere in the UK outside London. That is brilliant. That is great. I love living in a city that is so vibrant and has got so much different cultural heritage. It's fabulous. But if we are going to, if the UK government, if Westminster are going to make changes to immigration policy to refuse to let students take dependents, for example, it's going to discourage people from coming here. And I want people to want to come here. I want people to come here. The future is looking pretty bleak at the moment. And I really think we need to change our narrative and our position on that. And actually, we need to be clear, this is not being done in Scotland's name. We largely do not agree with these policies.
I'm going to agree with most of what Kirsty and Guy have said, in that international students add so much to the university experience. As someone who came to university from a wee town in the Highlands, I met people that I would never have had a chance to meet anywhere else, and it enriched my life. And hopefully I maybe enriched theirs a wee bit as well. And it is quite inhumane expecting people to maybe come across to a different continent, a different country, and leave possibly their young families behind for months and months at a time. But not only that, there is the underlying issue of the fees that they pay, the fees that have been used to cross-subsidise home students, domestic students, and that is what is causing a financial maelstrom in the university sector at the moment.
Restricting immigration is abhorrent. It really is. I mean, these are human beings. Look around, all of you today. We're human beings. Could you imagine saying to these people, you don't belong here? How horrible is that? Immigration is great. I agree with Kirsty on that. I do not agree with the Tories. The Tories are constantly making it harder and harder for people to come here. They're levying higher rates on visas, is what I've seen the other day. And to me, that's awful. I want to make things easier, reduce the boundaries. And this is why we should never have came out of the EU. We should be back in the EU.
Well, I'm not going to win any friends here, I can tell. But I do believe that immigration does need to be controlled, because if you have uncontrolled immigration, you have an issue on our public services, our National Health Service, for instance. Now, I work in the oil and gas sector, and I'm surrounded by people that studied here and now work here from many different nations. And I support having students come over here and learn from our great education system and then use that education to fulfill their ambitions in Scotland, which is a wonderful place to be. So I want to see immigration, but I want to see it controlled.
Well, I think the successive Westminster governments have failed on immigration policies, and what they are trying to do is play to the right sort of Nigel Farage thing, I think, in England, whereas in Scotland, we actually need immigration. We need it so we have doctors, nurses, students coming to universities. So we need a common sense approach, and until Scotland is independent, we're never going to have total control of our borders, because the UK, or some of the things that they're thinking about are just insane, like the Rwanda stuff. I mean, really, what kind of planet are we living in here?
Well, I think I'm perhaps in the maybe enviable position. I think I'm agreeing with pretty much everything everybody said about this one. But I would say sometimes, you know, how we look at things obviously can sometimes determine our own reality. You know, sometimes we think the world's a bad place, so we'll end up having think we're experiencing more negative experience. But anyway, in respect of international students coming to Aberdeen or coming to Scotland, you know, Scotland is a wonderful place. It's a beautiful country. We've got lots of fantastic stuff out in our cities and in our countryside. And we also have great universities. So What I would say is, if you want to come and study in Scotland, please do. Please be welcome. We're very friendly. But my advice would be bring a raincoat because the weather's terrible.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that one. We have one more on immigration, which is a bit more specific as to the graduate visa policies and kind of worker visa and things. So I'll read that one out, and then we'll go on to our next topic, which will be kind of focusing on the conflicts in Gaza and in Ukraine. But first of all, let's go with this question about immigration. The UK government recently passed a new immigration law under which to get a work visa, you must now earn $38,000 per year. This figure is unattainable in most sectors, especially for graduate jobs in the Northeast. Consequently, it will be a very stressful, if not impossible, time for international students who wish to stay in the country and contribute to UK society. What are your thoughts on this law, and do you have plans to oppose it or support it? And if so, how? We'll start with Charlie, work our way down to Richard, and then I'll get the mic up and we'll move on.
I think it's that type of law just shows you how far out of touch some of the people in the Westminster government are. I mean, I think that's well above the average wage of any worker that's probably employed by the civil service as well. So why would they expect a student to come under that kind of scrutiny? We should have an immigration policy that lets people come into the country. I mean, we have problems all across, not just with the students, but try and get a tradesman. Well, we're a country that's forgotten how to do things. We need people to come in and replace the jobs that are missing. And that's my time up.
I'll maybe try and keep it short. We'll see, try and finish going to the hand, Scott. But I think education needs to be affordable. We all agree that. And if it's going to be cost prohibitive, then it's quite simple. People won't come here and they won't study here and they won't enter a beautiful city. So I think we need to be mindful of that as well.
I'm going to get a little bit personal here, actually. So I've got family members who work in social care, and their take-home pay is 18 grand a year. We have a social care problem in this country. And if we're expecting more people to come in and work in social care, which apparently the government does, how are they going to do it under this policy? That doesn't make any sense to me. The other side of that is I have a colleague who's now having to leave the UK because of the Home Office policies that are in place. Her husband is a student and he's graduating, and he's not going to be earning that, above that threshold. And also they've increased the cost it is to get visas. So the cost is prohibitively high. So now they're having to leave. So I would oppose this law and I would seek to abolish it. I think it's outrageous.
I agree. I think the changes are shite, frankly. We've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of immigration cases. We've supported people to get visas. We've supported them to get visitors visas for their families to come and see them graduate. We've supported loads of people. And the number of times I've sat around the table saying to somebody, look, I'm really sorry that this is the way the system works. If I could change the system, I would change the system. This is the way the system works. And the UK government is going to try and do everything it can to catch you out and make you leave. And how awful is that we're having to have that conversation with people? That's not the country Scotland wants to be. That's not the country Scotland is. But it is the situation that we are stuck in right now. So we should keep the graduate visa. We should get rid of the policy with the 38 grand restrictions.
I agree with Charlie's point about the £38,000 limit, just showing how out of touch Conservatives are. New graduates, I would have loved as a new graduate to have earned that amount or the equivalent back in the day. And does seem like this Conservative government does seem to keep shooting itself in the foot when it comes to things like this. As Guy mentioned, the care service is absolutely desperate for staff. But a lot of the staff do come from overseas. They will never earn £38,000. And the consequence of that is that people are left in hospital. They can't get home because there are no home carers to look after them when they're discharged. So it has a huge impact on many people across the UK, and it should be scrapped.
Can anybody tell me when is the next flight to Rwanda? Because that's what I'm heading. That's where the Tory government wants me to head, because I have never seen that kind of money in my life. I have lived in Scotland all my life, and I've been made homeless twice through no fault of my own. And according to the Tories, I'm not worthy to be in this country. I've seen immigration tear families apart. Loved ones get torn apart because one of the members of the family just wasn't earning enough. I say this is a sham and it should be abolished, should be done away with now. I mean, how inhumane is this, honestly?
Well. Now, I don't actually know where they got the 38,000 from, because when I was a student, if I earned 38,000, I think I'd won the lottery. And that's been quite frank. But what I would say is I've been at university, actually this university, with people that have come from other countries. In fact, I've sat in with Kirsty and a Ghanaian lady that was struggling to be in the country and get the visa sorted out. So I know the hard work that other parties have put into this. But what I would say is that people have come to this country to study, not to work. And I've seen people knocking their pan out doing cleaning jobs and bar jobs and then come to university and actually almost fall asleep, such as the pressure on them. So I apologise. I don't know why it was set at 38. That is not something that I'm aware of in terms of how they set that. But I wish I'd earned 38,000.
Okay, so anyone else want to get back in on that? We see Graeme. If anyone else wants it, put your hand up. We'll pass it around, and then we'll get on to our next set of questions.
Yeah, again, I'll try and be quick. But my last girlfriend, she works in the care industry, and she was from Lithuania. So again, ticking all boxes there, I think. But she, I realised how low, what a hard job she did, working 12-hour days, and the wages were very low. But I think across the board in a lot of areas of society, the wages are very low, and that needs to be looked at because people really are not being paid enough. The cost of living, as we all know, has gone up. Taxes always continue to increase, but people don't ever seem to get a massive jump in salary. So that needs to be looked at right across the board.
Kirsty, then Sophie, and then.
Yeah, just on that, we don't value care work enough. I've made this point in Parliament on numerous occasions. Carers do not get paid enough for the job that they do. I really think that needs to be looked at, and the Scottish Government has done what it can in terms of ensuring that everybody working in adult social care is paid a real living wage, not a pretendy living wage. We need to go further, we need to do more, but I think we're getting into conversation about a kind of fundamental restructure of society there, which I think most of us would like to have that conversation, but care work particularly is not valued highly enough.
So yeah, the Tories' new idea, it's xenophobic, it really is. I mean, to close your borders that much, I mean, that's effectively what you're doing. You're effectively shutting the rest of the world out. Now, we live in a global economy. We interact with people from around the world all the time. We shouldn't be shutting the doors on people. People have so much to offer, and we cannot be inward. We must be outward, especially to face the problems of the next century. I mean, take the global pandemic, for example. The only way that was solved is because of cooperation from across the world. There's no way we could have solved that as fast on our own. We need immigration, and we need people from across the globe.
Okay, so we have a few more sort of subsections. We'll have about 2 or 3 questions each, so make sure we don't keep everyone too long, although I'm having quite fun. So essentially, the next group will be about international affairs, especially focusing on the conflicts in Palestine and in Ukraine. The first question is from Mohammed, one of our students here at the university. Over the last few months, there have been weekly protests in support of the people of Palestine in the city centre. There has even been an encampment on Elphinstone Lawn. Given that, should we be divesting completely from any links with Israel in the wake of arrest warrants that were submitted recently? So I think we'll start with Richard. We've been having a lot with Richard, so we'll start with him. We'll work our way down to Charlie. I'll pick up from Charlie. If anyone else wants to get in for a second go round, I will get back to you. So we'll start with Richard and work our way down.
I'll try and start with something that we might find agreement on, and that's that we do not negotiate with terrorists. We do not want to see terrorism win. This was started with a terrorist act, and I have to say that it is absolutely appalling, the humanitarian situation in Gaza with the people of both Palestine and those that are in captive over there. I think we need to make sure that the people are looked out for. We have something that's unfolding that we have the power to get involved with, but it's very, very complicated and very emotive.
It's not complicated.
Firstly, I'd like to say solidarity with Palestine. Can I see you? Can I see your fist in the air? That's it. Lovely. No, it's not true. The conflict did not start. They didn't start last year. This conflict has been going on for years, and it's been spearheaded by the IDF. The IDF, Palestine needs to be free. We cannot have this constant oppression from the West. What is wrong with Gaza being an independent state? What is so fundamentally bad about that? I say end the conflict now, remove the IDF forces and free Gaza now.
Situation in Gaza at the moment is horrifying. We should have an immediate ceasefire. For that to happen, both sides need to respect that ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu is a far-right politician. He is not typical of the state of Israel, just like Hamas is not typical of the people of Palestine. As I say, I would like an immediate ceasefire, for the hostilities to stop, for humanitarian aid to be made sure that we can get it in quantity, and for there to be a lasting two-state sustainable solution.
The specific question was about divestment, so I'm going to answer that, and hopefully I'll get a chance to comment later on the wider situation. I do think that we should not be sending arms to people who are committing war crimes. I mean, that shouldn't be a sentence I should have to say. We should not be doing that. I think it's completely reasonable for those people with, the university encampment, for example, to ask about the university divesting. I think it's completely reasonable for any of you who've got money in pension funds, for example, to speak to your pension fund and say, look, I want you to divest. I think you should be using that power that you have in order to influence those things. And we shouldn't be funding or sending arms to anyone who commits no crimes.
I'm getting agree with Kirsty there. I don't understand why we would be sending money and materials to a government that is under indictment, essentially, that has court cases for war crimes and genocidal acts. Why are we sending these people our money, our arms, etc.? It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and it needs to stop. Divestment is one part of that. I think that the university should divest, not just because of this conflict, but it should be divesting from arms more generally, as well as fossil fuels. Why are we investing our pension funds, our future, essentially, our retirement, in things that kill people? I don't think that should be right, and I think that needs to end. The last point I would say is I think we need sanctions on Israel, and I would say we need sanctions now.
Okay, so this is a hot topic. My view is, again, I'm probably going to be trying to see both. I try a lot of time to see their points of view in a lot of things, but I think as human beings, we all agree war It's not good. Nobody wins in any conflict. So in any conflict around the world, we should be seeking to stop fighting, and from whatever means that possible to do that peacefully. The only people that really win out of wars is those that sell the arms and weapons. You know, the real casualty and the real cost comes out of people's lives, people who are displaced from areas of conflict, and I think we all agree that's a terrible thing altogether.
Yes, and we should carry out the support international law in the ICC and ICCJ, and we should stop the sale of arms. We should prosecute the people, and we should arrest them and hand them over if they ever set foot on our soil. And we'll have to do something about that. We'll have to stop the fighting is the immediate thing. Stop the killing, and get a solution sorted out. What that solution is, I'm not going to, I don't know the perfect solution, but that's why we get around the table and we find it. But absolutely behind it. And if you know me from my involvement with SPSC, and you might recognise me, or you might not be able to know my wife anyway. But cheers.
Okay, so obviously, is anyone keen to get back in on the discussion? I see Guy's hand, Sophie, Charlie, do you want to get back in? Or you're already there, that's fine.
Is
Anyone
the
else?
next question on this?
So it's about more about Ukraine, the next one. So grabbing this one if you like. So that's why you're heading first, Guy, and then Sophie, and then back to you.
Just one of the things that Richard had touched on about not negotiating with terrorists. We did that in Northern Ireland, right? That's why we have the Good Friday Agreement. That's why we have peace. Don't get me wrong. I have no love for Hamas. I'm a gay man, right? I have no love for Hamas in this situation at all. They have no love for me, but I do have a love for people, and I do not and cannot condone the killing of thousands, tens of thousands of innocent men, women, and children for crimes committed by others. So we do need people to sit down around the negotiation table with people that we don't like sometimes in order to achieve peace. And in this situation, that is what's needed. There was a temporary ceasefire negotiated with Hamas, and we saw hostages released. We need to see a permanent ceasefire in order to get the peace that we all want.
When did collective punishment not become a crime? I cannot believe they're allowed to operate collective punishment against civilians. People like in this room, they're launching long-range missiles that would take out everyone in this room with one hit at the click of their finger, and we'd be dead. That's what they're doing to these people. They're giving no warning. Women, children, getting blitzed in their beds whilst they're sleeping. These weapons they're using are horrific. They're barely even, and they're not lethal. So they should not be using them. And I think this is an atrocity. And I want to see a long-lasting ceasefire. And I want companies like Barclays to be held accountable.
Thanks. I mean, what happened on the 7th of October was horrific. It was really, really grim. But you hear people talking about a right to retaliation. There's not a right to retaliation. That is not written into international codes. You do not have a right to punish the population as a result. Gaza's got the highest number of child amputees in the world, right? That's horrific. Do you know what? I manage to not kill people every single day. It's very easy to not kill people. Right? Killing people is the hard thing. It should be very easy for them to stop killing people. It's entirely possible to do. A ceasefire is really desperately needed because the situation in Gaza is really horrific. We're going to put forward a bill to recognise Palestinian statehood in the next parliament. That's one of the first things we're going to do.
Okay, so I'm cognizant of the time. So we have, here's what we're going to do. We have one more question on this sort of topic, will be about encampments in general. We had a couple, and there's one that's been just wrapping up today. After that, we have some locally based questions about ways that the kind of members of parliament can help out the local community. So we'll do one more of the kind of Gaza Palestine related question, and then two more local ones, and then maybe we'll head to We'll see. Okay. So let's go with this one. This is just a straight yes/no question. We'll keep it quick and easy. One word. I'll give one-word answers from all of you. No one. But as much as you can. Do you support the student encampments that are coming up around the UK? We can even do like just let's give some thumbs up at the end there. But just pass it down, yes or no, and then we'll go on to our next, which is locally focused issues. We'll start with Richard this time. Work down to Charlie again, and then we'll pass it.
Yes or no? I'm very indifferent, but it's like I say, I'm indifferent.
Okay. There we go. Pass it on.
A resounding yes. In fact, it's brilliant.
I would say yes, because I'm a believer in freedom of expression and peaceful protest.
Yes, use the power you have. It's the power you have is to have an encampment, use it, and hopefully you'll get the results you want.
It's a yes from me. There you go.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Oh. Do you support these student encampments that are coming up around the UK on this issue? When it comes to Israel and Palestine, there's encampments that are coming up. Students are protesting. Do you support that, or do you know?
I think, yeah. I get involved in activism here and there as protest. People feel their voices are being heard. So yeah, protest and make sure whatever the topic is, as long as it's peaceful, yeah, fill your boots.
Right answer.
Yes, I do, and I'm proud to be an Aberdonian, although I never went to Aberdeen University. I've played here heaps of times. But I also think it's great that the university made a stance on the ICHR definition of anti-Semitism, was it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you argued it with university and you overturned it to a different definition.
Yeah.
I think it was a great thing. How are you guys for doing that?
Okay, so now we're going to go through some more local issues, which still obviously have national ramifications, but obviously are important folks in the room. Now, the first one is actually quite relevant to me as well, because I stay up in Peterhead. According to the Campaign for North East Rail, Peterhead is the largest settlement in mainland UK. That is the furthest from a railway station, and Fraserburgh is the second furthest away. What steps will the candidates take to be a voice of support and investment and the development of new railway links between Aberdeen and communities in Aberdeenshire? And that's from Blair, one of the students in the room. And again, as someone from Peterhead, I'm quite partial to this. But we'll start with Lynn. We'll work our way down to Charlie, and I'll bring it back to Richard, and we'll finish with Sophie.
Well, as a believer in public transport, I think our train system suffered so much from the beaching cuts in the 1960s. I'm not old enough to remember those, just for the avoidance of doubt. And I think it is well overdue that we take a look at the use of rail, where the pinch points are in the current network as well. There's always been a problem at Montrose. More investment in that, looking at the viability of hydrogen trains, but also looking at the network that we have that was decimated by beaching, so that we can invest for the future and have a public service, a public transport service that's fit for everyone.
The campaign for North East Rail emailed me today, and apparently I was the first candidate to respond saying, yes, I absolutely support you. So I'm fully in agreement of that. I would also like to see more in the way of railway stations in Aberdeen. It would be fabulous to have one at Kidsbrewster and one at Cove. And there are also unused rail tracks in Aberdeen that we could bring back into use to have more rail within our city. More rail is a really good thing.
This is something I already talked about earlier on in the debate. I fully support the campaign for North East Rail's aims, and I would go further, to be honest. I really urge train geeks amongst you to read the Rail for All report. It's a really, really fantastic piece of work that the Scottish Greens commissioned, and that's the kind of investment that we need. I would just, a slight disagreement with Lynn. Hydrogen in transport is incredibly inefficient. We should be looking at electrification.
I don't agree with that.
I know you don't, Mike, but it's similar with hydrogen heating of homes. It's highly inefficient as well. So, but I would say that looking at transport, the rail, bus, and ferries should all be integrated. You should have a one-ticket system, and you should be able to go from one to the other. I think that's vital.
Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that is sorely lacking in the North East is good rail links. There used to be a link up to the towns that were mentioned, Peterhead and Fraserburgh. It's called the Buchan Line. We used to have more rail around Aberdeen, so we'll all know that a lot of us probably know the South Teesside Railway Line. It's a great walk, but you know, once upon a time used to be a railway track. And yeah, I agree with Kirsty. We do need more cities in stations in Aberdeen. If we have better rail links, then people are going to be less likely to use their cars. There'll be less congestion on the roads. But again, speaking of roads, we also need to think about road links. So the 896 and the A90 up to Peterhead also need to be looked at for investment and improvement. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're totally behind public transport initiatives that help the economy, get the people moving about, and I would back them being free as well. And if you want to help the environment and you want to have a net zero future, free public transport is a crappier way to do that. The less cars on the road, the better.
I think in the 2022 manifestos that we saw from various parties, there was one area that really stood out to me where the Conservatives and the SNP actually agreed, and that was to have a station at Cove. Probably annoys you quite a bit that we agreed on something, but the actual idea of having connectivity to Aberdeen and from Aberdeen across the northeast is really important, because if we're going to increase things like our tourism, we need to increase how we get to places and where we get off to increase the tourist trade itself.
So this goes back to my point about the need for having a council-run bus service in Aberdeenshire and Aberdeen. Now, the reason why this would be good, it would create more buses to link up with the trains as well, because you need that too. You need people to get out from the small towns in Aberdeenshire to the train so it can link them to further afield. And I had a good discussion with Campaign for North East Rail about that, and it's something they've been planning around. And I think it's great. I think anything that can encourage public transport is fantastic, and I'm all for it.
I think everyone's had a shot on that one. So we're here to our final question, and I know we had so many questions submitted. I think over 50. What's the final count? What do we have? 50 on the dot. 51 questions, and obviously, if we add all of those answered, we'd be here for a few days. And what we'll try to do is we may see if there are any sort of frequently asked questions, and we can approach the candidates with those after the debate and see if we can get something written up and put online. But obviously, we do thank everyone for coming. Our final question will be another locally focused one, and it'll be about the housing crisis in Scotland. So essentially, this is from an anonymous student. Help to Buy, stamp duty reforms, lifetime ISAs. The government has tried everything to get young people on the housing ladder except address the actual issue, the shortage of housing. When are we going to stop trying to apply demand-side solutions to a supply-side problem? So I'll let you guys kind of go through that and talk about kind of housing. We'll come back to me at the end. Yes, and after that, we're going to have a poll for the audience to see if we've convinced anyone. So I don't know for who. I mean, I'm here as an American. I can't vote for anyone. So, but what we'll do is we'll start. Where should we start? We'll start with Kirsty. Work to see here. We'll work to Richard, and then go Richard back to Guy, which is like a bunch of chance checkers here. All right, here we go.
I mean, I might slightly disagree that that's the only problem. I think the economy is a bit broken. And certainly people who are younger than me are much less likely to be able to afford to buy a house than my parents' generation who could get a house for 50 pence. You know, so I think there is a really, really big issue. We've been doing what we can from the Scottish Government's point of view. It doesn't help that Westminster's now slashed our capital allocations this year, which is a bit grim. But one of the things that we did do is we cancelled right to buy in order to increase the supply of social housing, and that's allowed local authorities to build social housing again, which has been massively positive in assisting in the rental market at least.
Don't have it for now. Yeah, bless you.
Sorry. Caught me by surprise there, I'm sorry. That's okay. Yes, a lot of what's in the question focused on people buying homes, but a lot of people don't want to own their own home. They're quite happy renting. And I think rents have skyrocketed recently, and it's really important to acknowledge that. There should be some controls on rents. We also have a shocking level of people in temporary accommodation in Scotland. And that's quite shameful. In addition, we should be building more affordable housing. Unfortunately, the SNP government this year cut the affordable building programme by 26%. So we won't be able to do that as much within local government. There is a housing emergency, we need to address it, but it's a multi-pronged approach and it won't be easy.
Yes, thank you. It really is a housing emergency. It's quite scary. It's quite terrifying, to be honest. But as well as a shortage in social housing, we also have, it's also hard for first-time buyers because employment in the UK is so insecure. There's so many people on 0-hour contracts, fixed-term contracts. And if you go to a bank to get a mortgage, they just turn away or they don't give you much because they want security. And it's hard to get security when there isn't the secure jobs out there. So that's the fundamental thing to target is get rid of 0-hour contracts. I mean, who comes up with that sort of thing? Yeah, I mean, that's where we start.
I think one thing to point out when it comes to first-time buyers is that the SNP have set a first-time buyers tax relief for a house in Scotland at 175,000, which means if your house, and if you're in Aberdeen trying to buy a house, it might cost a bit more than 175,000, means that you pay higher taxes than in England and Northern Ireland. Just for instance, a first-time buyer relief extends to houses with a value of 425,000 in the rest of the UK. If you're a first-time buyer buying a house in Scotland at that value of 425,000, you pay £15,000 more tax as a first-time buyer.
How many first-time buyers are buying a 425,000 house?
Well, part of the problem we're in this situation is because of things like Airbnbs, buying up all the houses in cities and out the road, and the private rental sector buying stuff up for investments in lucrative areas. That's something that's very difficult to address, but our policy would be for a national house building company, and they would be able to build companies and give jobs to local people, and would be able to not be getting ripped off by tradesmen in the process of the house being hundreds of thousands when it can be built for maybe 20, 30 grand, using your own staff, employed by a national house building company, and good deals with your suppliers for your materials. That's a common sense approach to get new social housing on the go.
Fairly, I also like the word common sense. I think it's a good word, and it's often overlooked in certain areas. But yeah, I'm probably not going to add much more. I think I agree with a lot of the points that's been made. My thoughts really were, obviously if you build more houses, that puts the average price of houses down, makes them more affordable. There's definitely an issue there. Every generation they're finding that houses are less and less affordable. But I don't think that's just so much the price of the houses themselves. It's also the relative amount that people earn, because again, it's over the last 10, 20, even 30 years, wages have effectively stagnated, and that makes it a lot harder for people to get on the property ladder.
So housing is an issue that Scottish Greens have been working on quite extensively. I'm a member of Living Rent as well, so if you are a tenant, please join a union. But one of the things we tried to introduce with the housing bill was rent controls. Obviously, the Butte House agreement has collapsed, so that is potentially at risk with the current balance of Parliament. We want to see rent controls, and if you look at Living Rent, their proposal for rent controls are exactly what we would like as well. When it comes to supply, we would like to see, for example, planning reform. So at the moment, developers can, if councils waive it, get away with not doing their percentage of social housing on a development. We would scrap that as well. And very lastly, we have actually introduced licensing on Airbnbs, etc., short-term lets. I urge the Scottish Government not to revoke that because that is at risk at the moment.
Okay, so, right, so we have a poll, you guys, you wanna like, get out of the way if you like, we don't want anyone blinded, that'd be unfortunate. So come out of the way for a second, we want everyone to scan the poll, you can put your kind of voting preferences and, I'm not sure what the poll say. Hold on, Kirsty knows the poll, let Kirsty say the poll.
So I'm gonna be honest, here at the Gaudie, we do not have endless money, so only 50 people can scan, so please scan as soon as possible. But once you've all scanned, basically what it's going to say is, given what you've heard tonight from our 7 candidates, I think it was, basically, who do you intend to vote for? Has your mind been changed? We don't have a question about whether your mind's been changed, but give the candidates in the room a bit of an ego boost, I suppose.
So yeah, so we'll do that, and then we'll have the candidates back on stage for their closing statements. But we'll see, keep scanning those codes. And well, there's only 20 people voting, I think, can I write in Canada?
You're gonna budget left.
What's it say, yeah?
Well, this was pretty.
It's the council one.
Gaudie for Aberdeen.
All right, we have 12 more slots. If anyone else wants to vote, get them in. I think, let's see, 38, are we on 38?
We're stuck.
Oh, no. Right, everyone's waiting, except waiting. I think we're all sitting down. Oh, we live. Closer back, so 1 second. Oh. That's a good question. Yeah. All right, we're forward here. I think we're good. Let's see. All right, we're gonna press 5. 1, 2, wait. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll is now live. It's a bit chaotic, my goodness. So you're not going to get this sort of entertainment at the kind of official listings by the these corporations. Oh, wait, it's popping up now. Early lead for Kirsty. Oh, guys, give it up. Okay. Never stay waiting the count. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. You go first. Two now. Oh. I know. Well, yeah, Jeff isn't here, unfortunately. So, want to vote for Jeff? Give him a.
The vote way.
Yeah, I don't know if that was right. All right, here we go. 2. Oh, it's getting close. Oh. We have a tie. I want to leave a tie. Okay. And we're still voting. I think this might be calling it. Oh,
You're all easing me now.
Right. I think that's. Oh, is it someone getting that actually? I know. This is very important. Okay, I'm gonna call it. Did you recount? I think we're gonna call it.
A recount.
Oh, okay, I think that's it. 16, 17, someone stop the count, rigged, all that fun stuff. Right, okay, so, well, Kirsty is our de facto Gaudie champion of the evening, so well done, Kirsty. Stage to do their closing statement. We'll turn the lights off so you don't get blinded, and we will let everyone have their 30-second close, and then we'll have yes. Go to the pub. Yeah. Right, we'll let me start last and turn this. Some of you guys. All right. What? Oh, wait, we have a randomly selected order of pub. Yeah, well, thank you. Sophie's first. Sophie's first. There you go. Work away. Things.
Well, it was lovely meeting you all. You're all so lovely for coming out tonight. And I just want to say that I'm really passionate about people, as you can tell. And I'm really passionate about, you can probably tell that Palestine is a big passion to me. And another issue that wasn't brought up tonight was I'm really passionate about trans rights, massively so. And I'm really passionate about just, well, immigration. I'm passionate about a lot of things. I'm a passionate person. But yeah, thank you for the great questions tonight. I really enjoyed hearing them, and I really enjoyed hearing everyone else's opinions as well. And it's good to share. It's really good to share. So please keep sharing. And thank you. Thank you to the Gaudie as well. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You've been fantastic.
Is Kirsty, so.
Thanks. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It is brilliant to have so many people here asking so many different questions. If you are not registered to vote here because you're registered somewhere else and you're here at uni or something, please register to vote. Please get a postal vote application in before the 19th. That is the last date to put your postal vote applications in. Make sure that you have got the ability to vote in this election. It is really important. And again, thank you all for your support.
Something else beautiful way I've spoken. Apologies, guy. Oh wait, actually you are next.
Kirsty is psychic. You've heard it here before. Yeah, I would just like to echo what Kirsty said. It's really important that you make your voice heard in this election. This is going to be one of the biggest elections we've ever had. And I know we always say that elections, but it's really true. We've had 14 years of failure, and we really need to see change. I'm nervous that what we're going to get from Labour is no real change, just the status quo. So vote for real change, vote for the Greens, and send a strong message to Westminster. Thank you so much.
Hey, we are going into Lynn now.
Thanks for that, guys. I would say, don't send a message, send a government. Thank you all for coming tonight and for being so engaged with the political process. It's great to see so many people involved. Hopefully, as Kirsty said, you've all registered, you're all ready to vote. It feels like the country's at a crossroads after 14 years of this failing Tory government. Let's do our best to make sure there's a new government in number 10 on the 5th of July. Thank you.
Right, so we're all the way back down again to Charlie. Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming. And I'll just reiterate that most of the problems we can't have a voice or do anything about them until we have our independence. And in this election, you should vote for the only party with independence on the ballot paper. If you want to keep giving mandates to the SNP who are occupying your mandate for independence, nothing's going to happen. Please vote ALBA if you care about Scottish independence and you want a better future for everybody here.
Thank you. On the 4th of July, you have a serious option before you. We currently in this area have an SNP-led council, and in this country we have an SNP-led national government. And look at the state of our country. We have the highest on record for years. We have the highest on record. What was that handle for?
It's your 10 seconds.
Oh, the 10. All right. Okay. So, vote Conservative. Fight the bullet. We will keep national insurance down, tax down, and we will not throw our oil and gas workers under the bus. Thank you.
All right, we'll finish with Graeme.
Well, that was an experience. It was enjoyable, and didn't know what to expect, but okay. Not really done something like this before. But yeah, one of the reasons I'm standing, just an ordinary person, my engineer said earlier, but a lot of people feel that their voice has not been heard by government and by local authorities, and they feel disillusioned with a lot of the main established parties. So what I would say is, give the other guys a chance, the ordinary person. And at the end of the day, I'm an engineer. I guess I'm quite direct and honest, so maybe it is possible for a politician to be honest, but yeah, or maybe don't vote to me, I can just go back to my day job. Thank you.